Big story going on right now. A couple big stories out in the ethers. It makes you question the state of America. It makes you question what a patriot is. It makes you question who we are, where we come from, what we're made of, and the type of metal that we're made. And I say that because we always talk about the sacrifice that people have made for us to be free. The biggest lie in the word freedom is the word free. Thanks, Banana Ran. Appreciate that. Oh, wow, it's not working on my side. Figure that out later. Anyways, guys, I want to jump into this. I want you to tell me, have you seen this video? Okay. Put a 1 in the chat if you have. Put a 2 in the chat if you haven't. This is real, unscripted. Let me know.
So they can? Well, it's uncomfortable. They shouldn't do that.
It's America. We should do that. Your feelings don't mean we shouldn't stop being free, bro.
You shouldn't record people in a library.
Yes, you should. You should use the First Amendment and all your other First Amendment rights.
Okay.
If you don't like America, there's other places you can live, bro. Yeah, okay.
I don't think you should allow them to be abusive like this.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you should ask them to leave now.
No, I shouldn't. It's not abusive to tell you that I can do what I'm doing. Thanks, bro.
I understand. Sir, please, if you could leave the patron alone.
The patron came up to me.
I
Get
understand.
it together.
I
We
understand.
get it together, right?
Quiet, but you have a right to video.
Yeah.
I'm not saying.
Yeah.
But you did say that I was bothering the patron. I didn't even speak to him. He came over here yelling at me, and
You're
somehow
right.
I'm bothering
I'm so
him.
sorry.
That's why I came over. I heard the other guy yelling. He's like, tell him to stop. Maybe he should read the Constitution. People bled and died for these rights we have, and I'm not going to give them up to any government agency.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you. What made you get up and speak your piece?
That's a good question. I think what made me is my dad fought World War II. I had an old dad, and he was a navigator on a B-24 bomber, got shot down, spent 8 months in a German prison camp, and almost starved to death. So I grew up hearing about that, and I think as a kid, you know, I learned to love freedom, and I love the Constitution. I love the idea that we have inalienable rights given to us by God, and I will stand up for those wherever I can. Plus, I had basically a career kind of ruined because I stood up for what was clearly an inalienable right, and no one else stood up. So when I see people like you guys standing up for our Constitution, I want to help in every way possible.
You guys have to remember that. And I know a lot of you folks are putting a 1 in the chat. What a brilliant story. His father, you know, had him late in life, was a POW in a German prison camp. I'm having trouble recalling the story. I wish there was a way that I could tell it better. So I'll just bring Dave up here.
Thanks for having me on, Josh.
Dave, so we got an echo in the back. Do you have the YouTube video running?
I don't think so.
Let me edit your mic settings a little bit.
I don't have YouTube open. When I logged in, it said give me an option of Facebook or YouTube.
No worries. I think we're good now.
Okay.
So you know, we met kind of organically. I'm in the library, and you know, I'm having this encounter, and the first thing that happens is the library staff tells me that, you know, basically I'm being disorderly and I'm bothering this patron. And from across the room, you kind of tell me how that unfolds for you.
Yeah, I was just at the library. Actually, I grew up in Wellesley, and I was in the area visiting family, and I was there, and I heard some commotion, and the guy near me was just staring down towards the main desk. So I looked down there, and I overheard something about that guy made the complaint about not being able to video record. And I've been recently watching a number of videos from a channel in Louisville, Kentucky, where a guy goes into county government and video records, and it's a First Amendment right. I know that. And so I walked down there to see what was happening. And I just, I wanted to chime in to say, I know this is a right that you have, First Amendment right. And that's why I came down there. Yeah.
So you walk up to us, and it can't be easy, right? Stepping out of the shadows and getting involved in the situation. Altercation can always be tough. You get the what was the driving force? One of the driving forces for you to get up and come over and defend the freedom of a stranger you'd never met.
Well, this might sound a little strange. I don't mean to sound arrogant, but it wasn't that hard for me because I have a demeanor that I think is different than a lot of people. I don't mind conflict. If I feel like if it's something I believe in, I don't mind standing up for it. In fact, I kind of relish it. I like being different in the sense that I don't like cowardice. So I'm very willing to stand up. So I want to say it wasn't too hard. What drove me to come over there was, as you mentioned earlier, my dad was a POW in a German prison camp, and I grew up as a kid hearing those stories about his experience, and it instilled in me a love of freedom, a love of our Constitution, and then over the years, I've learned more about the Constitution. A few years ago, I took a Constitution class. I learned a lot of things that I'd never heard in school about the nature of our Constitution, the founding fathers, what their philosophy was in writing the Constitution. And it really opened my eyes to realize there's a war going on against our constitutional rights in this country. And the problem is most people are ignorant of what those rights are. Once you become aware of them and how important they are to the Western civilization and its functioning, you start to stand up for them because you realize the danger we're in if we don't. So that's what motivated me to come over there, was the love of the Constitution. And also, I should mention, I had an experience a couple of years ago. I basically had a career ended at a college because I would not go along with a governor of that state, their vaccine testing mandate. I thought it was unconstitutional. It was blatantly against the First Amendment of the Constitution. I stood up, and very few others stood up with me. So it's kind of personal for me after that experience.
So, your father, and we're going to get a little bit more into it. He fought for people's rights, and you're going to go on to describe the word inalienable and what that means in just a short bit. I want to show you, I think you've seen it, and everyone else at home, a quick intro of something that happened directly after we met Dave at the next library branch. And then after this plays, Dave, I want to get your feedback on what your father might think of what we're about to watch.
United States of America is built off the 5 components and the principles of the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. That's everything. We're sitting in a building that would not exist if not for the First Amendment. Your only course of business is the First Amendment all over each bookshelf. And you think that you should enforce a policy that tells us that we can't do what you're already doing in each shelf. That's ridiculous. It doesn't take a genius to see that. And you would enforce that. You're smarter than that. And then you'd waste the taxpayers' time. The Wellesley police would come down here. They'd probably say in nicer terms than they did to the last librarian. Did you see that video? They'd probably say nicer terms to you than they did to him, that he's an idiot, we're not leaving, and he should get to step in. These are our rights. You don't get to tread on them because of some stupid policy. So do me and everyone else a favor. Don't ever pull that again, because it makes Wellesley look bad. It certainly does not speak well of yourselves. Okay? Good? Gucci? Great? Brand? Wonderful? We learned something? Awesome. People come into a library and film, that's okay, yes? Beautiful. People come into film in a library and a patron doesn't give consent, they're still allowed because it's It's the law. It's federal law. Yes? Good. You're not going to enforce stupid policies because any law that would abridge the United States Constitution in itself Constitution is pretty clear. They foresaw stupid policies. So let's keep it to, are we, by law, are we allowed to film in the library and film the folks in the library?
As long as they do not ask you to stop filming them.
Oh, okay. Yes. What, so if they ask me to stop filming, I would have to stop.
Yes, because that's their personal.
Is that like a consent thing?
Yes.
Okay. So in public, you need to give consent to
If
be
it's-
on film.
if- If it's a patron that comes in and they ask you, that's the next for it.
Substantiates that, and that statement is actually what made my esteemed colleague here, I think, break out into laughter.
The policy that I was told by my supervisors is that you're allowed to film unless someone comes up to you or us explicitly says, "Hi, I don't want to be filmed."
Do you know where I told the last supervisor they could stick that policy? What's going on, guys?
So, and I want to put this picture up. I don't ever want this to be forgotten. This is a picture. Who's this a picture of, Dave?
It's a picture of my dad, and that's actually a photo of him when he was taken prisoner by the Germans. As a joke, he later sent that out as a Christmas card. But yeah, that's a photo.
So,
That's his sense of humor.
So he's in a German POW camp. Maybe tell us how he got there.
Yeah, boy. I mean, there's so much to that. He enlisted towards the end of the war, and he was a navigator on a B-24 bomber. They flew over, incredible stories. They flew over from Newfoundland to the Azores. They almost didn't make it to the Azores, and then they went to a base in Italy, Foggia, Italy, and they flew missions over Germany. My dad used to always tell me when they were in training, the instructor said, "Look to your left and look to your right. One of you won't make it through the 15 missions they had." So anyway, he'd done a number of missions, and then on one of them, they would always encounter flak over their over the targets. They were bombing different munitions plants and so on, and the flak disabled one of their engines. They barely made it over the Alps, but had to crash land in a dry riverbed, which my dad actually found for the plane because he was a navigator. They all made it out, but then they landed in the middle of a battle between the Allies and the Germans. And he was taken prisoner, was sent up to a prison camp up in the former East Germany, and spent 8 months there, almost starved to death, was finally liberated by the Russian Red Army, and then, came back to the States.
And folks, this story is not only is it incredible, it's cemented in time. There's something on To Fly and Fight, which kind of walks you through. You can't see. There you go. Now we can see it. Perfect. Let me blow this up a little bit for you. It talks about Colonel Russ Spicer, who was considered the commanding officer of all the officers that were there. Colonel Spicer was kind of in charge. It talks about, when the plane went down. But then we go over to where Dave's dad's mentioned. Let me just pull that up. Okay, so here we go. On the very cold morning on November 1st, 1944, the entire prison camp population had been rousted out of barracks for a required daily roll call, usually a 15-minute procedure. The Germans kept us there shivering for an unusually long time, recalled one prisoner of war, Lieutenant Philip Robertson, that would be Dave's father, claiming that they weren't getting the correct count. Robertson went on. After about 2 hours, Colonel Spicer dismissed us over the loud protestations of the German guards. He then called us over to his barracks, and we gathered around him, standing on the ground as he stood on the steps about 3 feet above us and began to talk loud enough for the guards to hear. When you look at some of the stuff that Dave's dad went through, So I mean, so he was at the Stalag Luft One prison camp, and it talks about some of the awful, awful stuff that they were subjected to. And Dave, how long was he there?
He was there 8 months and it finally ended when one day the German guards were gone. They were just gone, and they could hear the artillery of the Russian Red Army, getting closer every day. So one day the German guards were gone. 2 weeks later, the Russians came into the camp.
And what did he tell you was his feeling? Like the plane's going down, this certainly was a possibility, maybe not a foregone conclusion. The plane is going down. What are his thoughts?
I don't know if I recall on that specific part of the plane going down. I think that I think he kept a cool head, and he was the navigator, so it was up to him to find a place to crash, up to him to find a place for the plane to crash land. This was actually the second time he saved his crew's life as the navigator, because he found the crew had come to rely on my dad. He was a really competent navigator, and he found a dry riverbed that they're called the Tagliamento River in northern Italy, and they were able to crash land in it. I don't know exactly how that went. Obviously that'd be a rough landing, but every guy was alive when when the plane stopped. And my dad, I think, had a pretty cool head, and he was very good at like math and navigational things. So he was a competent guy, and the crew had come to trust him and rely on him.
He was debriefed, Dave, after after his rescue, when he spoke to his superiors, as often POWs are. There's normally several folks that want to crack at them to figure out what kind of information were they forced to give up, what kind of suffering they've endured, and it's been pretty clear that he was well known for only giving his last name and his rank within the armed forces. There was one of the first things he was asked was, how do you feel? How do you feel now after going through what you went through? And it's actually accredited in this article as well, where he says it was a small price to pay. So I've been doing a lot of research where we're getting some military records and stuff like that back. I think that your dad should have a long line of people thanking him for his service. But I got to tell you, Dave, if I'm in a B-52 bomber, it gets shot down over enemy forces, an enemy that is without regard for the Geneva Convention and the Code of Conduct and the rules of engagement, and I'm in a German prison camp being tortured for 8 months, and I'm not giving up anything except what my country allows me to give, my name and my rank. And then after that, somebody asks me how I'm doing. Excuse my language, I'm going to say I'm doing fucking terrible. I was in a prison camp for 8 months surrounded by Nazis, and that was the least of my problems. Like, I was a prisoner of fucking war for this country. That would be my response. Your dad's response was, it was a small price to pay.
That's amazing. It's not surprising that he said that. He loved this country, and he understood the greatness of it. I grew up hearing about that. My dad was he was quite a historian, and he was a lawyer by trade. He was a really smart guy, went to Michigan Law School. He understood the Constitution. He had a deep intellectual appreciation of the uniqueness of this country. He used to always say to me, the most amazing thing about the United States, it was the first country that was founded on an idea. It wasn't founded on a bloodline or a king or a dictator or some fanatical religious belief, but it was founded on an idea that all men were created equal. And, he loved it. So it doesn't surprise me he said that. It was a tough experience, though, because, and I could talk more about it. It may not be right here time for that, but, at one point, they had a double death warrant on them issued. What had happened was they were not getting enough food. My dad weighed 120 pounds when he got out. He normally weighed 180. but they were getting these Red Cross parcels as supplements to the German food. Those stopped. And on top of that, Hitler issued an order for the German guards to kill all the Allied air prisoners of war. And this was in retaliation for the Dresden bombings. So that night, my dad went to bed, the other men there did, and they had a double death, warrant on them. Fortunately, that order was lifted, and the Red Cross parcels came through again. But it was a serious challenge to life and limb.
Well, your dad was 100% sentenced. Look at his face, guys. Don't ever forget this face. Let me read you the sentence. This is about Colonel Spicer and one other, a captain and Dave's dad, were hauled away for a court-martial, charged with inciting prisoners to riot. Later, their fellow prisoners learned they'd been convicted and sentenced to serve 6 months in solitary confinement and then be executed by a firing squad. They were returned to the cooler to serve their sentence while awaiting the execution order. Occasionally, some of their men would be led by guards past the building in which they were incarcerated, and they would shout out words of encouragement. Robertson recalled, "Then I could hear Colonel Spicer shout back, 'We'll keep fighting. Don't give in to the bastards.' When asked if he needed anything, he always replied, 'Yeah, send me machine guns.'" In the end, they managed to evade the firing squad by a single day, and the death sentence was never carried out. Shortly before Stalag Left 1 was overrun by Soviet troops on the night of April 30th, 1945, the German guards fled and left the prison camp unattended. When fellow prisoners awakened, they were told they'd been freed. However, Spicer and his command staff wouldn't leave. "I have one more night to make it in an even 6 months. I'm staying here tonight." So Spicer, the captain, I don't want to forget his name because he is just as important. Colonel Spicer, Lieutenant Robinson, and where is this captain's name? I'm going to go through this and find it because I don't want him to be Captain Mozart Kaufman. They were held together, and think of that. You're sentenced to 6 months solitary confinement, and then we kill you. We want to steal the last little bit of life you had left. And the command staff, because in a prison camp, they'll get special names. They can't use words like, lieutenant or colonel. So they'll use things such as chief, boss to differentiate between the different ranks. They decided after they'd been freed, they were going to stay one more night of that 6 months. And that medal is here before you today. Look at it. Spitting image of his dad. Let's look at Dave. And now let's look at Philip. Look at that. And the reason I'm doing this so you can see both faces is because we're 80 years later, folks. We're 80 years later, and tyranny and oppression confronted me in a public building. And myself and journalist Red was with me. And of course, no one wanted to stand up for us, despite the large number of people in the library. We were being called instigators, antagonists, and I literally hadn't even said a word. This guy saw me filming and, stormed the gate, screaming, demanding I be removed. One person in a time of oppression stood up and refused to give in. And I'm talking about 2 generations of Robertsons here, but the one in this specific story is Dave. Dave, we the people, thank you for your intervening that day. And on behalf of a grateful nation, we thank your family for their service.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing, Josh, and to talk about what you just spoke about my dad. I actually wasn't aware of that story you told, but the spirit of Colonel Spicer, see, that was the spirit of people like my dad from that generation. And you had asked earlier about how he would have reacted to those librarians. He, in that bomber, he sat in a little glass turret at age 18 as German flak exploded around him at 20,000 feet, and he almost starved to death, standing up for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. And it's just appalling to me that people in this country can, first of all, be so ignorant of our constitutional rights, and also how many people have been cowardly, frankly, about when they do know them, about standing up for them. And these people were willing to risk their lives. Some of them died horrible deaths for these freedoms. You know, it's the least I could do to come up in a library and help, come to your defense. It's like, it's amazing to me, some of these folks, though, who work in government positions, they don't even know the most basic aspects of the Constitution. Like in that video you showed, if I might say this, there was another librarian in an earlier encounter at the Wellesley Library, and he came up to you and said, "Oh, we have this image creation policy we need you to sign." And you said, "Well, yeah, I think I've already got a copy of that. It's the Constitution." And he said an amazing thing. He said, no, this image creation policy is more relevant specifically to the library. It's like, totally wrong, bud. The most relevant thing to that library is the Constitution. It cannot be traduced by any little policy created by the quote director of the library. Constitutional rights are inalienable rights. They trump everything else. No one can separate them from you. And I love the fact that you stood up for that.
Well, you go on to show them that, see, with these government officials and some of this tyranny, they really rely on fear and other people helping them. So like if citizens jump in on their behalf, they really like it. They crumble as quickly when somebody, who's not for them. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bring up that video because I want to show you, this is one of the first times where it was not myself that caused panic within the library. It was actually Dave. The way that they reacted after he spoke his piece, the tables turned. They completely shut down because Wellesley is one of the wealthiest communities in the country. In 2018, the Almanac had Middlesex County listed as the richest county in the United States. People don't have houses in Wellesley when they have to worry about money. This is a very rich community. We're going to get into Dave's past a little bit. But this is a place where people don't buck the system. They take their money, they go home, and they enjoy a very lavish lifestyle. So I want to show you this full interaction up until when Dave comes up and how this library personnel immediately changes tactics. And for the first time, it wasn't myself that set her straight and had her reeling. It was actually Dave. So let's take a quick peek at this part of the video, because I want you to see, folks, you can do what Dave did. We, the people, hold the power. We, the people, are pissed. We, the people, are the ultimate end-all, be-all for the government, because it's a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Like, you guys can't forget this. Dave didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and he got up and he did this.
It's a public space.
So they can? Well, it's uncomfortable. They shouldn't do that.
It's America. We should do that.
No,
Your feelings don't mean we shouldn't stop being free, bro.
you shouldn't put people in the library.
Yes, you should. You should use the First Amendment and all your other First Amendment rights. If you don't like America, there's other places you can live, bro. Yeah, okay.
I don't think you should allow them to be abusive like this.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you should ask them to leave now.
No, I shouldn't.
So let's keep an eye out right there. Now we have an upset citizen in Wellesley, Massachusetts, and she's so sorry about that. In fact, she's about to give me an earful until Dave, and the best way I can say this is his father's son, until Dave walks in.
I shouldn't. It's not abusive to tell you that I can do what I'm doing. Thanks, bro.
I understand, sir. Please, if you could leave the patron alone.
The patron came up to me.
I
Get
understand.
it together.
I understand.
We get it together, right?
Right.
I didn't say anything to you, right?
I understand.
I came up. I was very kind to you, very polite, professional, allowed you to do your business. Came up, walked over there. Didn't talk to anybody, did I?
Yeah.
I came over here. Apparently, when I arrived, he was talking about me, and he started speaking and then directed his speaking to me. So would you say that he's bothering me, or would you say that I'm bothering him?
He was trying to talk to me, so I understand why he's uncomfortable. I'm just trying to
No, he engaged
de-escalate.
with him.
He
So-
did, and I
So-
saw
so-
that.
So how was he trying to talk to you if he was engaging with him?
Well, he was trying to.
You're not even
Yeah.
speaking logical, so it's
It just doesn't make sense. Like, I wasn't speaking to him. He didn't like being filmed, so he was rude, abrasive, and made demands. He didn't bother.
And folks, now I want to show you like what America is. Angry vets out there, I solemnly swear, badass combat vet. A lot of vets out in there, out in the comments tonight. Appreciate y'all watching. And for the folks that like really can't wrap their mind about why we fucking do this religiously, like it means life or death, it's because of what's about to happen right here. Like this is not only, and I've said this for years, America isn't a nation. It's not just a nationality. America is an idea. It's an idea mixed with principles that formulate what greatness we as a people could be. We have inalienable rights. These rights are self-evident. When you look at how basic the concept of the Constitution is, it was a Constitution for Dummies before there was a book called Constitution for Dummies. It was so straightforward, to the point, unequivocal, and inarguable. You couldn't argue with it, right? It's inalienable. It's a government of the people. We need to stand up. Right? Like the Constitution, the forefathers foresaw this happening. They knew that once you get a little bit of power, someone will come by and screw this up. And it's up to a few people, a 3%, which I told Dave earlier, now is like 0.3% to come up. So when you ask what America is, it's a tough question to answer. My idea of America is this. I mean, and I made this thumbnail specifically. On the left is a young Philip Robertson joining the United States Army Air Force, you know, knowing he's going to go into some shit, tail end of World War II. On the right, you have his prison photo when he was sent to a POW death camp where he was sentenced to die with his two other supervising officers. And in the middle, you have a guy that just happens to be wearing a shirt that says mandate freedom. And then he comes in and does this. This is fucking America.
Didn't bother to know that it's legal for me to do this, right?
It's a public space. You can videotape, right? It's a taxpayer funded.
That's what I'm talking about.
No,
I was
that's why
my
I don't hear your conversation. Just
No,
if
I was-
someone's objecting.
yeah. I just
You can public. It's public. You can. That's
and
First
just
Amendment.
because people are in the library, I decided to be quiet, not engage with anybody, because I want people to be. And then this guy comes up here and demands that they make me leave and tells me that I'm not allowed to do this.
Constitution.
You see her, guys? You see her on the left there? Now she's making excuses. You got dastardly Dave coming in for the win, right? Supporting the United States Constitution. Let's look at her face now real quick. Look at that face. She has no idea what to do. Now she's switching sides. And that's what blind following government is. They're going to switch sides. They're going to play whatever side of the seesaw hits the sun first. Watch Dave break her down and make her change her entire belief system in seconds.
Make me leave and tells me that I'm not allowed to do this.
Constitutionally, it's a public funded space.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I love this shirt, man. Thank you. Did you serve?
I did. My dad did.
Well, thank you for your family's
It's
service.
ridiculous. I mean,
Absolutely.
we
I
have
mean,
constitutional rights.
this is, I have the
Amen. brother.
United States Constitution
Amen.
all the way up my shoulder.
I've been watching this YouTube channel where this guy goes in and he videotapes like interactions with the county police and different, and he videotapes it and they're coming out. You can't do that. He's like, it's a tax.
Do you know the name of his channel?
Yeah, it's called For Public Safety. He's out in Louisville, Kentucky.
Chris. Yeah.
Chris. Yeah.
I know Chris.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
I
I featured
follow
his.
him. I'm
I
like,
featured his first video.
Did you?
My name is
Okay.
Accountability for All.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
We need
he's.
more channels like that because and these even the cops come out. You can't do that. It's like you have a constitutional right to do that.
Well, I came here before to this library, and something very similar happened. I didn't speak to anyone else. They actually wound up calling the police on me. And the
Really?
police
Really?
explained that I was allowed to be here, after that, they rewrote their library policy, doubling down on the fact that it is illegal, unlawful to film inside the building. Yeah, in here they just redid the policy. So we came back to again quietly and peacefully observe our First Amendment right. And then this guy wants to get up and talk tough. And then this young lady right here is telling us that we should stop bothering the patrons.
Well, I definitely agree with like maintaining quiet, but you have a right to videotape.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But you did say that I was bothering the patron. I didn't even speak to him. He came over here yelling at me, and
You're right.
I'm bothering
I'm so
him.
sorry.
That's why I came over. I heard the other guy yelling. He's like, tell him to stop. Maybe he should read the Constitution. People bled and died for these rights we have, and I'm not going to give them up to any government agency.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Josh.
John.
Now look how quickly, folks, she gave up. Dave, I mean, I know you probably didn't factor that into your day, but I mean, we all watched the video. She was ardently against me. You spoke your mind. She changed sides immediately. Did that feel powerful?
It did feel powerful. And if I might say this, it shows she's a coward. She's like a lot of people where they could stick their finger up and, oh, which way is it blowing? Oh, I'll go along with that. You know, and it just takes one or two people coming in and they'll suddenly switch sides when they're confronted, when they're actually confronted and exposed. Because, and the thing that bothers me is how many times does this happen where, you know, someone doesn't know their rights, and how many people are told, oh, how many people came in and, oh, you can't video record, and they just believe it because someone in the library says it. You know, that's what's incredible. These people are so ignorant of our basic rights. And as you said earlier, they work in a library. A library is the epitome of the exercise of the First Amendment and freedom of speech. As you said, there are hundreds of thousands of books in the Wellesley Library. Each one of those is an example, demonstration of the exercise of that amendment. And the people working there aren't even aware of that. Like, how is that even possible?
So I know you remember I told you a story about a friend of mine named JC News Now out in Ava, Missouri, and some of the stuff that he was going through, being persecuted by police for just standing up and doing the right thing. I know that angered you. He's in the chat today. But I want to show you something that I don't know if you saw, but after speaking to you and then thinking about your father's sacrifice, I knew I had that library by the balls. In fact, I knew I could go and tell them that now he should leave because he's disrupted my constitutional rights. And I knew that they would make him leave. And I tried to think of what your dad might have done or what so many brave folks would have done. And I did something different that I've never done before. And this is what happened.
And I think that guy could be Hitler's grandnephew.
Sure.
Okay. Haley, I really do think he should be asked to leave the library, though. He created a disturbance. And I've looked at your new list that was updated in October, and it was approved by the board and the library director. Creating a disturbance or impeding on other people's natural rights is actually a violation of library policy. And he did violate that policy in front of you. Did you want to ask him to leave today?
I will go confer with Annette. She's kind of my superior.
Oh, okay.
So.
Let's... Actually, you know what? Don't worry about it, because we're bigger people than Nazis.
Yeah.
Right? He used his free speech. He looked like an idiot. He tried to violate our rights. Why have him removed?
Okay.
Because we're a lot bigger than him, right? Would you agree?
That's very kind of you.
Would you agree?
I would agree.
Thank you very much, Haley.
Have a
great day.
And don't get it twisted. I called him a fucking Nazi for a very specific reason. And I stand by my summarization of him being a fucking Nazi, because a fucking Nazi it's greater than just World War II. But Nazis literally held this man's father captive, and that's what this guy was acting like. However, I realized that my freedoms, guaranteed, inalienable, cannot be tread on, right? So even though that guy sounded like an idiot, he was still free to say what he was saying. And what he was saying was in violation of the very policy they were trying to enforce on me. So I used the same policy they were trying to illegally enforce on me to have them not enforce it on him. And I did that for a reason, because we live in a free country. A
Yeah.
free country. Now, Dave, we've talked about your dad and how that's led you, a very large contributing factor to your beliefs on freedom now. You've had your own fights, and there's certain things we can't discuss. But during the lockdown, there was a lot of discussions about people's constitutional rights disappearing and the need for diapers and all that stuff. Dave, tell us a little bit about where you graduated from college.
Undergrad, I went to a place called Lawrence University, and I went to Stanford University for grad school. I have a master's degree in physics.
So hold on a second. You got a master's degree in physics
I do, man.
from Stanford?
I do.
So-
I had a good educational background, and I'm not ashamed of that. Most people from my background, though, do not think the way I do about our rights.
So well, that was going to lead into my next question, Dave, is that, Stanford, degree in physics, well-to-do, I don't want to say the word elitist, but
Yeah.
from the outside looking in, the conception is that's kind of an elitist thing. And that's not how you took it whatsoever. In fact, despite your schooling and the outside view of what you should be, you went on to do something pretty incredible.
I did, and it kind of happened to me. So, yeah. So I taught at a college, and I'll just say the name, Principia College in Elsa, Illinois. It was the only college in the world in my religious denomination. My religious denomination generally does not believe in, we ourselves don't typically use medicine or go to doctors or take vaccines. I had religious exemptions from all vaccines as a child. So anyway, fast forward, I've been at this college 14 years teaching math and physics, and the governor of Illinois issued a mandate requiring all faculty, staff, students at all colleges and universities in the state of Illinois to either get the vaccine during the lockdown or to submit to a weekly test. And that violated the religious beliefs of individuals in my denomination. So a number of us submitted religious exemption statements to the college saying we were exempt from these requirements. And the most incredible thing was the college denied those religious exemptions, which I asked people to, it's like the Twilight Zone. Like, aren't we the guys who get religious exemptions?
So,
And so
I just want to I want to try and understand this for the folks at home and for myself. You're part of a religion, you're part of a faith, which good for you, because that's your First Amendment right to faith or freedom, however you want, and you should always, without question. And we've had discussions about my faith. I used to be Catholic, and now I'm not practicing. In fact, I'm kind of critical. However, Dave and I have had multiple discussions, and that doesn't get in the way of our discussions, because he's a goddamn true American. But he's part of a religion, teaching at a religious college for that religion that does not believe in getting any of the plugs in your arm, and the governor mandates the diaper during the lockdown based on this religion. I'm religious exempt, and then they tell you no.
yeah, I was like, this is really weird, because if there was a place in the world where I'd be more likely to get a religious exemption, this should be the place where I'm the most likely in the world to get a religious exemption, and they denied our religious exemptions. So yeah, and I at that point I stood up, and there were some other issues too. I had students who were told they couldn't go to class because they had to quarantine at home because they didn't have the vaccine. So, but if they did, they would have been okay to go to class. So at that point I stood up. I confronted the college administration. And
so wait, before you tell us, and I don't mean to interrupt, before you finish, what I'm guessing is that you have a degree in physics from Stanford University. very prominent family name, you know, lots of good deal of money, everything's great, and you weren't giving any of that up for silly beliefs, so you conformed.
I didn't. Well,
And everyone at home's mind just blew right there. Wait, Dave did something for himself, his
oh,
beliefs, and his country. He didn't
yeah,
just conform because he
right.
had so much to lose.
Gotcha.
That is still a fucking thing, people. You're watching, that's still real. People still do that. A very small amount of people, but
Very
people
small.
still do that. I'm sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. You caught me there too. I was like, I didn't conform, and you're right. That's the expectation that everyone would just conform. I confronted the administration. I wrote a letter. It ended up being over 40 pages. I researched the whole uh, event, the lockdown event. Let's put it that way. I got a lot of signatures to my letter from alumni, donors, parents, and so on. Guess who didn't sign it? No other faculty signed it. They're all of my faith. So that tells me
None other.
no one else. It was me alone. In fairness, I didn't present it to all. There's about 70 faculty. I presented it to about the 10 faculty who I thought were most likely to sign it based on what I knew about them. None of them signed it. So I figured, well, why ask the others? But it was amazing to me, and they're all of my religious beliefs. So it just showed me. It was interesting how the staff signed it, and the students signed it, but the faculty wouldn't. It showed me they were afraid of losing their cushy job. And yeah, I resigned. I confronted the president and legal counsel, and I said, "Will you honor religious exemptions? This is what we have a tradition of this for 100 years." And they basically said no, and so I said goodbye.
So, cushy job, excellent degree, arguably one of the best, if not the best schools. I mean, I think like the conversation is Georgetown, Stanford, Harvard, Cornell in certain discussions. Maybe not if you play sports, that might be a problem. Have that discussion, but you have the world in your hand, and you give it up because you stood on your beliefs. 3% of a nation did the same thing 300 years ago. Three people decided to give no information to their captors for the period of 8 months. One of those is his father. He meets me in a library, stands his ground, and changes. I mean, my third visit to this library chain with different, and they wouldn't back down on me. They saw Dave, they backed down real quick. And in the face of losing everything, you did what was right. Was there ever a question? Did you need to think about it, or was it a snap decision like this is my belief and I'm going out with it?
That's a good question. I did actually. It wasn't a snap thing. I was aware of what I was giving up when I took that stand. But going back to my dad, I'll quote something he always used to say to us. He said, "You have to live with your own thoughts of who you are. You can never get away from them. You can't go on vacation and get away from them. You have to live with those thoughts." And he was a lawyer. He used to say the worst penalty for someone who commits a crime is not jail time. It's having to live with the thoughts of what you've done. And I'd been at this college, and there were a lot of things happening there prior to this they didn't agree with. And at some point in the day, you say to yourself, I have to live with who I am and what I stand for. And that's really why I took that stand, because I could not live with myself just remaining quiet and just going along with it and conforming and not respecting myself. And this was such a basic liberty. To me, the First Amendment, the right to practice your religion freely, like that is the foundation of this country. That's why the pilgrims came here, and they landed in a waste howling wilderness, lost half of their crew in the first winter. None of them went back because it meant that much to have the right to practice your religion as you chose. And when people say to me, even a guy I knew on the college campus, a soccer coach, said, "Oh, it's no big deal. Just stick it up your nose. It's not a big deal." Yes, it is a big deal, because once you cede power to the government to say we can control what you take into your body, we can coerce you to take things into your body against your religious convictions, then you might as well just sign away the whole Constitution. Just give it to them. Say, I'm not part of this anymore. I mean, we have to stand up draw a line and say, this is the line I draw. And we have the right to practice our religion according to our conscience or whatever belief system we have.
Well, that's tough when you quantify in real time in your real life the difference between what your convictions are and what you need. And I've had this discussion with you, and I've had this discussion with many people, and the difference is this, folks, right? 300 years ago, liberty or death meant something because without liberty, there was no alternative. There was death. You take our guns, we get more guns. If you're going to try and take our lives, because without liberty, there is no life. And that was it. They bugged out and they went balls out because that was the only thing that could create a nation as beautiful as the one that we're in. There was nothing to lose. Well, now when we're confronted with history and present, and we're confronted with a situation like where Dave stepped up, we have everything to lose. Instead of thinking we have nothing to lose, let's go. We think, I have low percent financing. I got a great deal. I'm only paying 5% on my mortgage. I got this real cushy job. I got this minivan. I take all the kids on a carpool to soccer practice, and Skylar's mom is just totes the best. And like the list of what you can lose should never be contingent on material things.
Yeah.
All that is granted to us within the United States Constitution. And Dave used a very strong word. He used the word conviction. Right now, most people that do what we do will get convictions, right? But to have convictions, it's a very powerful thing to be at a precipice where you say to yourself, nothing else means more to me than who I am, who I love, when I get down on my knees, who I pray to, the uniform that I wear when I fight for this country's freedom. And a lot of folks out there that watch these videos that are my supporters, they say, oh, I don't believe in the military, and, they're fighting big pharma wars and gasoline. And guys, I'm not trashing you, but I want to tell you something. When this man sat in a German prisoner of war camp, who was so outspoken and so vehement for his defense for this country, he had to be separated and was sentenced to death after 6 months of solitary confinement. He was not saying to himself, well, I'm glad I, got in that airplane, manned that turret, and navigated this, this B bomber because, the big pharma really needs me today. Regardless of what it is you think wars are about, there's still people like Dave. There's people, in the military like Phil, I solemnly swear, the angry vet, who don't care what the principles are. The principles are one thing. We, the people. That's it. That's questions asked.
It's we the people. Look, there's such a misunderstanding of government. And this is what I learned going back to studying the founding fathers. All the power is with the people. The entire purpose of government is to preserve the inalienable rights of the people. That's their whole reason for existing. And now people have such a misconception. They think the government somehow is supposed to do all these different things and is supposed to give us our inalienable rights. No, those rights came originally. We already have those. And governments are instituted of men, of the people. Like they're us. And now we have a situation in this country where people feel like, oh, there's a bunch of experts and they know better. They'll tell me what to do. It's a basic misunderstanding of the system of government we have. They serve us. The people have all the power in this country. And yet we as a people, like recently what happened is, I'll just say this, to a large extent, our nation's become a nation of sheep. And we want the government to tell us what to do, how high to jump, where to live, what to stick in our bodies. That's our decision. And we need to claim back that basic right that it's we the people. Go back to what the founding fathers said in their writings. They were willing to sacrifice everything. When they signed the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, they realized they were signing a death warrant. If the British had won, they would all have been executed. So they were willing to give up their lives, their fortunes, and sacred honor. What are we willing to give up? Lose a Facebook friend? have someone give us an uncomfortable look at a soccer game, maybe have to send our kids to a different school. What are we willing to give up for these freedoms? And unfortunately, a lot of people in this country recently have decided, I just can't give up all these material things. I just want to be safe and comfortable. Well, that always ends badly. If people want to live in some place like communist China and have their safety and have no ability to speak their mind, no ability to worship as they see fit, then they can go ahead and do that. But I would rather die than live in a place like that.
You know, I don't think it could be better said. Folks, if you're out there, Angry Vet just put up a link to JC News Now. That's his Cash App. Any money that is made from this video on my end will be donated in full to JC News Now. Any Cash App donations you would like to make. In fact, let me make it easier. I gotta go back. Here we go. I'm going to replace the pinned comment. It's automatically always up there. Pinned to the top of your chat is the pay link for JC News Now. Out there fighting for our freedom, kneeling to no one. I always say, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And JC News Now is ready to go out on his feet at any moment in time, simply for doing what Dave did, for doing what I did. But the problem is the government thinks they can push him around. He's a smaller channel, doesn't have 150,000 subscribers and 70 million views. And, he's a little bit smaller of a fella. So it's easy and it's acceptable to pick on somebody when they don't have as big of an audience to take their back. He's taken the world and this community by storm. He's standing his ground. So show him some love. Between myself and James Freeman, his legal expenses are covered. We need to make sure we do the right things for the right reasons. And sometimes, thanks as if, sometimes it's okay to do what others would consider to be the wrong things for the right reasons, regardless of whatever side of the aisle you fall. I think we can all agree that this country is not in the best shape that it's been in. It has not been in the best shape that it's been in since the meeting of the First Continental Congress. Like when really, everything was bipartisan. Tony F., combat vet, came to my wedding. Right? These are people that are real, that really fought, that really give a shit about what's going on. And whether we did it with a uniform or we did it without, everyone has an origin story. Today's origin story is about the man that you see in front of you, a man that carries his father's convictions, a man that believes in freedom, that believes in the principles guaranteed to us by the Bill of Rights and the United States Constitution, a man that is not afraid of popular or unpopular opinion, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, a man that is going to stand up for what's right. And I think that's very important because it only ever takes one, right? Dave is that. I'm telling you guys, let's do pure statistics. Dave, you have a master's in physics of 2,600 videos. There are only 2 people that did what you did. So what is the percentage? What are the odds that would happen?
Really tiny. I think that was set up. I was there for a reason. It's and the other strange thing, I had this Mandate Freedom shirt on. So I know to some people it almost seems like it was a setup, but it wasn't. I was just there and I saw Josh down there and I saw this commotion about First Amendment rights. So I think we were all in the right place at the right time.
I wouldn't disagree. Oh, my dogs are letting me know they love you too. I got a Belgian Malinois and German Shepherd, and they all take American commands. I don't know if you guys over there and anyone harboring, anti-American beliefs. I got some Germans, and they hate the Nazis. They hate the Nazis. So moving on, what I would like to do is I want to, before we end this thing, and everyone stay where you're at. I want to play something that I think is very important, and like I don't give a shit about the money. Like, as you guys know, these live streams don't make me money, and in fact, if I do a live stream on a day that I release a video that's really good, it kills my pocket. And that's why there's not 300 to 500 people watching right now. And I knew that there was a chance this might happen, but I didn't want to take away from this story. And I'm gonna play copyrighted music. I don't give a shit. I'm a partner. I'm a content creator. I'm going to do what I want because I think that the right thing should be done. So what I want everyone to do is glue your eyes and your ears to the screen. I'm going to play something very quickly. And then after that, we're going to close up because Dave has a few parting remarks. So let me throw this up. And guys, I wrote, Phil, we have your 6. And what I mean is not really Phil specifically, but Phil in this picture, to me, this made me tear up. In fact, Dave can attest to this. I took so much time making this thumbnail that I called Dave before I sent it to him. And I was like, you gotta, look at this thumbnail. I want to hear your reaction. He's like, I'm driving. Like, what do you want me to do? So he waited until he was safely stopped. He could look at the phone. He saw it.
Actually, I didn't. I took a peek driving. I was able to get a smooth stretch of road, so I took a look. Endangered a few other people on the road, but
victimless crimes.
What's that?
Victimless crimes. What are things like speeding?
Yeah, no big deal.
I mean, and Anna saw it. She's like, that's a beautiful thumbnail, but not for the talent. Like, that is freedom. Like, when I say, Phil, we have your 6, what I'm saying is like, America, we got your back. Like, this man had no idea who I was, and he laid it all down on the line. He stayed an extra night. Like, imagine the Red Army coming in and saying, after 8 months, you're malnourished, you've been beaten to death and tortured, you're now free. And then his dad and someone else are like, they gave us 6 months. We're going to show them. Like, that is an amazing thing.
I did not know that story. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's called A Speech Worth Dying For. And of course, it was submitted by the members of Colonel Spicer's regiment because he was actually, his boat went down. And he was on a dinghy for a week before he was captured by POW. So he was first in the camp. The captain was second in charge. Your dad was third. And they were all very outspoken. And it explains how at every point they were, and it wasn't for themselves either, which is great. Every time you learn of or you read about your father or Colonel Spicer's heroism, it's nothing they ever did for themselves. It was, Colonel Spicer and your dad stepping up on a set of stairs and saying, don't give in to them. They were doing that to give their troops courage when they were probably scared shitless.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's an unbelievable story. I've got to look into that more because my dad didn't mention that or I forgot that, but he certainly had a million other incredible stories and also super funny stories. I mean, things that would, because all these young guys were in this camp and they had a lot of time in their hands. And, just to say one, I'll just mention one. He said a couple guys every day would go out and they would had a notebook with a pencil and they'd be writing these sophisticated calculations. They would hold things up in the air and drop them and so on. And then one day my dad said these guys came back to him and they're all excited. And they said, oh man, the German guards confiscated our books. And that was the whole goal. And what they were doing was calculating how many flies it would take to carry one of them over the fence. But that was kind of the game to keep themselves sane. You had to do things like that. And it was a big thing to get the goat of a German guard.
I mean, I can't even, you know what I mean? Like it's something special.
Yeah,
right?
it is. It is.
It's something wonderful to know that people would do that for us. And I'm inspired by that. I think that that's great. I don't think it's something anyone can ever question. You can't speak about it unless you were there. And to be able to sit down with your dad and grow up the way you did and listen to the stories that you were told, that is nothing short of incredible. So I thank you for your family service.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your having me on today. And It means a lot to me. I'm really glad that we had this coincidence when I was down, which isn't really a coincidence. I mean, I'm so glad this happened because I didn't think, I just came up. I wasn't thinking what this would lead to.
Well, before you go, I want to play something real quick for the folks at home. And I want this to be all about Phil for a second. So let me pull this up, and don't go anywhere because after we have a brief announcement. So just stay right there. Dave, thank you to you. Thank you to your dad. I mean, listen, some people are willing to die for this shit. I mean, literally. I mean, my entire arm is dedicated to everyone, not soldiers, but everyone that's paid the ultimate price, the ultimate sacrifice for our rights. A lot of them in the chat right now, lighting it up, telling their stories. And you're here today telling your story. It is a tragedy that folks like myself need to be out filming government installations.
Yeah,
because we've lost so much.
They should be doing the right thing of their own. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing because they're not, but it's a shame that we have to hold them to this kind of account. That the only way they'll do what's right is if they feel pain. And I've encountered that in the St. Louis area. I was thinking, this is a incredible experience being on here and seeing some of the information you shared about my dad I was not aware of, and listening to that song. And I just think about, I know people tuning in here generally know our rights, but I want to encourage anyone who's afraid to stand up. Think about this. People bled and died horrible deaths so we can enjoy these liberties. So the next time someone thinks, well, this seems wrong, but if I stood up, I might lose a Facebook friend. I want people to think about that. There are people who bled and died horrible deaths on the beaches of Normandy, for example, running into machine gun fire for an idea, the idea that all men are created equal, that we have these inalienable rights that no government and no institution can introduce. So that might help people who are teetering on, kind of debating it, like stand up. You can only be blessed by it.
Now, I still believe that a vote means something. And I think, Dave, and you tell me what your thoughts are, I think that a vote means something because I have an ultimate and unwavering belief that this country and the designs the founding fathers laid for us still means something. So that vote must count for something. The problem is the folks that are running for office or considering running for office are not those. They're not American citizen accredited. They're people that are out to serve themselves and their own interests and the interests of lobbyists that could give a shit about the people of the United States. We need someone like you, Dave, running for office. What do you think about something like that?
I'm open to it. People have told me, they're like, hey man, you should run for office. And I know I've gotten politically involved quite a bit in the St. Louis area, Missouri. I know a number of state legislators. I talk to my friends, but I would be interested in that for sure, because it is really a service role. You're not there to serve yourself. The whole problem, the reason our country's in trouble right now is people go to DC and they're serving themselves. You are here to serve the people of this country. For example, just if you have an open border and people are pouring across it and endangering the citizens of this country, you serve the people of this country. You don't serve yourself or what money you might make off that. So yeah, I would be very open to running for an office and trying to instill a love of the Constitution and our rights there.
And Dave, it seems like that office would most likely be, I'm guessing, in Missouri somewhere in an undisclosed area.
Yeah, undisclosed area.
Very undisclosed, Dave. Keep it undisclosed.
I do. I live at it's an off-grid setup that I'm very reluctant to share with anyone where it is. Although I come into St. Louis a lot. But yeah, from an undisclosed office near you. But yeah, I would be interested in that, possibly like state rep, state senator or state house rep, or another position. But that seems like it would be like the state rep would be a good place to start.
Dave, no one that's done or that does what we do has ever held office. So I've been looking into it. Might be far from a state rep, but Dave, if and I should say when, just if, no when, because of the who knows, it's going to happen. But if you run, Dave, then I am going to be running.
Wow, cool.
Select board in the town that I live, and it would I think pretty much be a very easy win. So Dave, we can run together on separate ballots in separate states, but if you do it, I'll do it.
That sounds like a deal. Let's do it, brother. I mean, I would love to see someone like you who's knows so much about the Constitution and is so willing to stand up for it. Now that would be a great like select county, county council or town council meeting to see, because it's just, I love those meetings where you have one guy up there, everyone else is drinking the Kool-Aid and going along with whatever violation of our rights comes up next, and there's always one guy stand up like, excuse me, we have these inalienable rights. I would love to see you doing that because you've got a great talent for it.
Well, I appreciate it. I want everyone now is the big part of the night where we can all go over and subscribe to Dave's channel. So let me show you what it looks like.
Yeah.
Here it is.
I just created, if you're wondering why there aren't a lot of videos, I just created this channel a few days ago for the folks out there, but I thought it was a cool name, after my shirt, Mandate MO for Missouri Freedom, but also a pun in that. Yeah,
that shirt kind of took the world by storm. I mean, I think everyone, just the fact that you'd be wearing it in a situation where freedom should 100% be mandated was just incredible. Guys, if you look to the top of the chat right now, pinned is the link for Mandate MO Freedom. MO stands for Missouri. That's Mandate MO Freedom. Go there. Tell him Accountability for All sent you. He's going to be having some more videos coming up pretty quickly. We're going to be working together. We're going to make sure that we give and offer Dave and the group of patriots that he works with very diligently access to whatever resources they need. And Dave, tell us a little bit about the group that you work so tightly with.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I got into this group. I organized the Freedom March in St. Louis in the spring of 2022. We actually marched through downtown St. Louis, which is a bastion of not exactly constitutional rights. But then I started to link up with a whole bunch of groups there. So I have a distribution list, an email distribution list, which I use to announce patriotic activities in the St. Louis area to try to increase attendance. And that's called STL Patriots Events. And it's also associated with a friend of mine created a website called We the People Missouri. And that website is designed to bring patriotic groups together in the St. Louis area. We saw all these groups, and they're all great groups working for very noble causes, but they weren't working together. And so the idea with that was to bring these groups together. So I'll put a plug for that. Should I, if people were interested in getting on that list, should I give, I guess, my email for that, or how they should get in touch with me? Oh, that's it. Yep. Yeah. So, and we're building this site. We want to have a page where, and we're working on this, where we can get the contact info on each of the groups, and because there's over 50 groups at least in the St. Louis area that are patriotic groups. So it's to bring those groups together. That's the website. It's beautiful. Oh, and let me give this email. It states it there. So that would be the best email to give. If someone's interested, even if you're not from St. Louis, but you want to be in this list, that's totally fine. So if you're interested, email info. So it's info at We the People Missouri. That's all one word. WeThePeopleMissouri.com. And I can add you to that list. Everything's sent BCC, so no one's emails are revealed. And it's just a way to get news out about patriotic events and rallies and protests and so on.
So Dave, you're up to 70 subscribers.
Wow, sick. That's pretty good.
So, I mean, head on over there. It's We the People Missouri.com, WeThePeopleMissouri.com. Dave's starting small with Missouri. He's gonna take him by storm. And it's, I gotta tell you, faith in humanity, faith in the American way restored when I met Dave. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm one of the longest standing channels doing this. I mean, when I started, it was Gavin Syme, Sam Joaquin, James Freeman, just name a few, John Felix. Not a lot of folks doing this. A lot of channels come and go. I'm still here, but there's often times when, I question, something fucked up happens. And
Yeah.
I asked myself, like, kind of like in the Aaron Lewis song, like, what is it that I'm fighting for? I told Dave earlier, it's kind of like pissing in the wind during a torrential downpour and trying to figure out how you won't get wet. There's no way around it. The country's coming down. The question is, we got to, how do we fix it? We got a solid foundation. The Constitution is rock solid. It's infallible. It cannot be challenged. It cannot be questioned. We just need people like Dave to man up, man up, and for a lack of a term, let your balls drop.
No, what do you have to lose? And you made a great point, Josh. We have an advantage of the founding fathers. We have the Constitution. We already have it. Like, this is way easier than what they did. They had to come up with it and fight. We have it. Just stand on it. And what do you have to lose? Like you said, just man up, and you'll find this new spirit will enter you. Something I listen to a lot of Tucker Carlson, and he talks about when you speak the truth, when you stand up and speak the truth, there's this power that enters into you. There's a power that's almost like superhuman. And I think if people just cross over that fence, the fence of, I'm playing it safe, trying to preserve all my friendship, preserve all these things, jump over the fence to, I'm going to stand for something, it's incredibly invigorating. Like, having the instances where I've stood, it's like, I feel so empowered, and it's a beautiful feeling. It's a feeling that you get when you do your videos. And I think a lot of people on this channel know that feeling. But if more of us do that, enough of us do that, we will turn this country around because we have the Constitution. That's the beautiful thing.
Dave, I appreciate it. There's going to be a lot more to come from Dave. Make sure you go over to his channel. Again, this is it. Everyone should be there. He's going to be doing some stuff of his own. The detail of the content, I mean, why give you any spoilers? If you believe in this country and you believe in what he's saying, and you've been a long time believer in what I'm saying, the proof is in the pudding. We're used to a lot of politicians giving us lip service and talking the talk and being petrified of the walk. We like to just, cut out the middleman. Instead of hearing us talk about it, you should go watch us and watch Dave be about it. Dave, I really appreciate you being here. It was an honor to meet you, and I cannot wait to work with you in the future.
Likewise, Josh. I really appreciate you having me on and exposing my story to your massive audience. You're a great guy. You're doing God's work. I mean, we need people doing this, and I'm hoping to start something like that out in St. Louis. Would be great to go do some auditing of the folks out there. So,
if only there were people I knew in Missouri
I know
that could meet up with you and share your thoughts of freedom.
Yeah, well, you got me right there, and I have a pretty good group. I am fairly well connected with groups out there. There's a lot of people who are frustrated. They just need the right avenue. We need the right avenue to affect change. So there's a lot of interest in that out there.
Dave, thank you very much. We will hear from you on the next one. Folks, subscribe to Dave. Let him know I sent you. Dave, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And listen, from an unwavering and grateful nation of a very small percent of patriots that still exist, that are willing to give it all at any time for the sake of freedom and for folks like this, we say thank you.
Well, thank you, Josh, for having me on here. And I look forward to being in touch soon and being on here again.
My pleasure. We'll see you later, Dave. Thank you so much.
Right.
I'm going to drop you down.
See ya.
Bye-bye.